This is our 2x2 series, and we're moving along studying the major arcana cards through the Tree of Life, 10 cards, and then through the Tree of Knowledge, another 10 cards. Today, the card we're going to look at is the Moon card. And this is a very interesting card. This is one of the cards that the message is going to be a little bit of a warning. And we'll get into that as we move through it. The partner of the Moon card is the Chariot. And we're going to see that there's a progression here where the Chariot, who was strong and balanced, had everything going for him, but something slipped. And the result of that slip is the Moon card. And that's why I say it'll come with a little bit of a warning. Today we are studying the tarot card called the Moon. Let's begin just with a bit of a brief overview. What are some concepts attached to the Moon card? And we're going to see 3 of them as we move through the different aspects. Mysticism, number 1. Number 2, imagination. And number 3, the subconscious. We'll sometimes draw a line separating intellect from imagination. And it's not to say one is right or one is wrong, but we'll see that when combined, they are extremely strong. When separated, there seems to be something missing. We'll start with the description of the card. Against a blue sky, a radiant moon shines down. Within the full moon is a crescent moon and the profile of a downward gazing face. From this shining lunar sphere, golden yods fall down like rain. Twin towers flank the shadowed earth below. A wolf and a dog stand on either side of a long and winding road. They both howl at the moon above. There is water beneath everything, and a crustacean crawls up out of it onto the shore. Oh, I dropped a card. Arthur Waite and the Order of the Golden Dawn, who were really indebted to for, at that time, being able to collect and preserve the remaining wisdom that was left of the tarot cards and put it into a form that was accessible to us. They still never realized that the tarot cards were purely a Kabbalistic creation. Even so, they were able to reference sources and arrive at insightful and accurate descriptions. Part of the genius of the cards, and of course the artistry of Coleman Smith, is that even without knowing the Kabbalistic trees, the meaning still comes through. We'll read an excerpt from Waite on his description of the Moon card. Some of his descriptions tend to be kind of confusing, and they're intended to be confusing. This one is more straightforward, and it has a couple of points in it that are really going to relate to the card we're talking about. The distinction between this card and some of the conventional types is that the moon is increasing on what is called the side of mercy, to the right of the observer. It has 16 chief and 16 secondary rays. The card represents life of the imagination apart from life of the spirit. So again, we'll look at the Moon card as imagination. The path between the towers is the issue into the unknown. Now we'll look at that a little bit later too. The dog and the wolf are the fears of the natural mind in the presence of that place of exit when there is only reflected light to guide it. And we'll see later on too, as the animals howl at the moon, thinking that the moon to be the source of the light, they don't realize that the moon is only reflecting that light, and that light is from the sun. The last reference is to another form of symbolism. And again, this is according to Waite. The intellectual light is a reflection, and beyond it is the unknown mystery which it cannot show forth. It illuminates our animal nature, types of which are represented below: the dog, the wolf, and that which comes out of the deeps, the nameless and hideous tendency which is lower than the savage beast. It strives to attain manifestation, symbolized by crawling from the abyss of water to the land, but as a rule it sinks back whence it came. The face of the mind, and we see this face in the moon, is very reminiscent of the face of the hermit. As the hermit looks down with non-judgment, he beckons. And we can see the same face. And it could be non-judgment, it could be just not caring, looking down and beckoning. But this time it's to the dog and the wolf. The dew of thought falls. The message is, peace, be still, and it may be that there shall come a calm upon the animal nature, while the abyss beneath shall cease from giving up a form. To me, as he says, there shall be a calm upon the animal nature. That is going to give the person freedom to be mentally balanced again, to be able to use their intellect, their logic, their rational thinking again. When those two aspects are linked, they create more than the sum of their parts. The Moon card and its alter ego, the Chariot, tell a story. The Chariot has spent some time with difficulty and has learned to be strong. As we follow the path of the first fool's journey, we'll see that the Chariot has emerged from a time of deprivation and of building strength. The strength of the Chariot is measured by his control of the two Sphinx. One Sphinx is intellect, and the other Sphinx is imagination. He keeps them linked together and achieves a symbiotic result. We move now to the Moon card, which is the Chariot when he no longer has control. The Chariot has no longer used his intellect and his emotion together, and in a way, his imagination has run away with him. In the Moon card, the charioteer no longer controls the two Sphinx. These magnificent and wise creatures have devolved and reverted to their primitive selves. The moon takes all of their attention, and they mistake reflection for emanation. I think because we look at tarot cards and we do readings and we look at what the future might hold, there can be a tendency for some people to think they've discovered a secret that will free them from the drudgery of this world. And people might find that with different forms of study. Some people might find it with drugs, and they'll just fool their mind. And this must be very powerful when we see some of the tent cities and the people who are losing teeth and getting disease, all for the pursuit of a drug. And perhaps it's that drug that makes them see this world as a dismal, temporary reality. And in them is the hope that at one point they will just simply break out of this reality into a glorious world beyond. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. This is the Flammarion woodcut. I remember many decades ago enjoying the Donovan album Cosmic Wheels, and this was on the inside of it. And this was in the 70s, and maybe even before that. And this is the idea that if we could just tap into that cord, if we could just find that secret doorway, we would be released into a heavenly realm and freed from all the trouble that this world presents to us. I always feel that this kind of a card and this kind of an attitude is a trap for some people. To think that the world that we're in, that offers everything, both good and bad, is just a precursor to a better world. We don't want to deny ourselves the pleasures and experiences here in preparation for something that may or may not exist. The Flammarion woodcut, the point of this card, the moon card in general, is a warning about emotional and intellectual balance. The moon card can also be a card of delusion. It can also be a card that, I know you think this and I know you feel that, but it's still possible that the reasons for these sensations may be mistaken. And we see in the woodcut a person finding a way to go beyond reality. Such a person believes that reality is an illusion, and if one can break free, they will see a cosmic super reality. And in this cosmic super reality, they will have revealed to them the workings of the universe. Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel is in the sky, along with clouds, celestial orbs, and a sky full of layers of radiant energy. This is a person in touch with an alternate reality. And of course, we can all be convinced of an alternate reality. We could be, as in the film The Matrix, just hooked up with wires and tubes and fed substances that cause controlled delusions, and we'll just lie there in a kind of dreamlike state, believing that we are in an alternate reality. This kind of person chases this vision and to some extent can turn their back on the real world. Jocelyn pointed out the other day that not everything in the imagination is a delusion. How is imaginative insight different from self-deception? We watched a movie the other day and they shone a bit of light on it in this way. They said, a hallucination is a false perception. Like a mirage, you can see things differently. So a hallucination is a false perception. They move on to say, but a delusion is different. A delusion is a false belief. So a delusion is not just that you see things differently, it is that you understand them differently. Let's see how this concept of fooling yourself occurs. And we all fool ourselves. We all misconstrue facts and motivations, and we come to erroneous decisions. Remember that the moon card can act on our subconscious. We aren't always aware of why we're feeling bad in this situation when it could be just a memory of something from long ago. If someone turns up the moon card, it suggests there is an imbalance in their lives. And this will usually be a pretty normal thing for most people. If a person turns up the moon card, I would mention imbalance and ask if they feel they're living too much in their imagination. And this can be many different forms. This can be absolutely fooling yourself, or it can be just indulging in books or movies. It's on a continuum. If a person turns up the moon card, some things you might say to them are, don't trust your feelings right now. It is possible you are being misled. It's possible you are confused. And it's possible you are hopeful or fearful beyond reason. Don't trust your feelings right now. They may mislead you. I would suggest that emotions may cloud judgment. If you're feeling strong emotions now, ask yourself, does the situation warrant these feelings, or am I perhaps remembering something else? We are all being controlled by our past emotions to some extent, and a person who draws the Moon card, you might ask them, are they being controlled today by difficult things that happened in their past? A person who draws the Moon card, I would suggest that to some extent they are in the dark and they fear things that may be just illusions. They may have fears that aren't rooted in reality. You would suggest to somebody that some of the feelings, the anger or frustration in your life right now may be the releasing of trauma from your past. The beasts in this card worship the light of the moon, not knowing it is only the sun's reflection. The moon affects us, but it shines no light. No light of its own, anyway. As an overview, for someone who has drawn the Moon card, I would say something like this. You feel lost, scattered. You strive to walk the middle line, but your guiding star may not be what you think. You feel lost and fear unseen enemies. Now, there's not the intention here to separate intellect from emotion as one is better than the other. None of us are or can be pure intellect like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. Even our personal logic can be steered by our emotions or imagination. And very often, what we think is just pure logic and common sense may actually be just some emotional whims acting on us. Without the sobering and rational guide of our intellect, our imagination is capable of filling our minds and even controlling our actions. But as I said, imagination is not our enemy, but our salvation. Our imagination raises us out of animal existence. I've recently been reading a book by Yuval Noah Harari called Species. He has several books, and he makes you think twice about some norms that you may have considered as stable before. He makes a compelling argument. He points to the human ability to share imaginative ideas as our greatest power. So imagination isn't just a fun place to be. It is the thing that raised us to the human level from the animal level. In a sense, it is our imagination that led to evolution, and it is our shared imagination that allows us to live together and work together in such great numbers. He explains it much better and in much greater detail. But the bottom line is the imagination is equally as important as the intellect. The imagination is what moves us along, and the intellect steers us, guides us, and keeps it from going out of control. Finally, I'll just make a few statements. The moon is a complex card of our inner mind. In a reading, it should be explained with sensitivity and compassion. Suggestions should be gentle. A person isn't going to just accept the idea that an idea might be more emotional than intellectual, because there would be no way of telling. Our minds fool us all the time. So we approach this gently, and if we're guessing correctly, that person will let us know. The moon card suggests that someone is living in their imagination. Feelings from the past may influence relationships in the present. Hope, faith, and belief may replace logic and rational thought. This is what the Moon card does. It's an overwhelming sense of following your emotions, but the destinations can be varied. And there is often not a lot of truth to this card. There is excitement, new ideas, and new possibilities, but many of them are dead ends. This has to be tempered with the idea of rational thought. Intellect alone will not lead to insight and inspiration, of course. Intellect and imagination together are symbiotic. They're more than the sum of their parts. Imagination without intellect can take us many places that may be nice to visit, but you shouldn't want to live there. Okay, why don't we take a look at some of the questions, Joss?
Before we do that, we have hello from Kayla Ponce,
Hi, Kayla.
James Roberts,
Hi, James.
our Sarah Williams.
Sarah?
And here's a question.
Okay.
Are the two towers in the Moon card the same as the two towers on the Death card?
Yes. When you look at the towers, they are the same towers. In the Death card, the Twin Towers represent severity and mercy, which are the bookends of our reality. The Death card, following the path will lead you to the reality between the two pillars, and that reality is a setting sun. It's a reality of darkness, and it is what death will bring. On the Moon, the sun is just an illusion. It really is just the moon. And the two towers that the animals are going to be going between as they follow the path lead to nowhere. It's the imagination that they follow, really, right now, and the destination could be anything or nothing. But they are the same two towers. The Death card leads to darkness, and the Moon card, it'll lead to wandering.
Is the Moon card a symbol of loss and cruelty?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't mention this. The Moon card, along with the Chariot, are on the right pillar. That's the pillar of mercy. It's the pillar of growth. Everything is allowed here, and you'll have difficulty excluding anything. This is not a card to be afraid of. This is not a restrictive card. This is a card of everything and anything goes.
What are the golden drops falling from the moon?
We've seen this in other cards before, and it's a bit of a sign. In a movie, if you hear thunder in the background, it's usually an indication that the lead character is doing something not honorable.
Or that something is going to happen.
Or something going to go wrong, yeah. In tarot cards, yards can represent divine grace, and for atheists, it would be more like a universal reality. It is part of the causation that's happening in the universe. It's something that's going to happen. It is supported by the other events. When you see yards falling, it means you are probably going with the flow and rising with the tide, riding a wave. You're probably going to be all right. There is divine support for you, if you will. This is not just a dead end or only self-deception. It is a process. You learn through the Moon card to better know the differences between fact and fiction.
What does that lobster or crayfish mean?
It's paranoia. It's fearing imaginary enemies and problems. And very often we all worry for 4 hours on something that will be over in 5 minutes. you don't want to really extend your suffering longer than it needs to be. So that's what this means. The person is no longer dealing purely with facts. They are in their imagination, and the imagination can be a wild place. And along with this comes the possibility of unseen enemies.
Where does that golden winding road lead?
I think I mentioned that inadvertently a little earlier, is that it leads nowhere. Leads into blue mountains. It just leads into something that has no definition, no destination, and it could lead anywhere. It is unlikely that this path is going to be a positive path for the person because it is random and it's based on sort of illusion.
What is an example of someone representing the moon card?
Well, this story goes back almost half a century, I guess, Joss. It goes back a long time. And we were in university. I guess everybody was in their 20s or something. It was what, the 70s. And there was the idea that everything was possible and the future was bright. We met many different people. We met this one lady, and she would probably call herself a spiritualist. She was a mystic. And she was an interesting person, certainly seemed intelligent and knowledgeable, but she had this idea that she was on a superior plane from everybody. And at that time, we were just gullible enough to think we didn't know everything. So,
Well, which we didn't.
which we didn't, and we still don't. But anyway, she professed to have these abilities. So one day, a few of us got together in a common room. It was night, and we lit a candle, and it was a big deal. Like for me, this was going to maybe change the way I looked at the world. I sort of believe in the effects of gravity and such, and to have someone levitate, I was going to have to rethink a lot of stuff I thought was scientific. So we were gathered, and she sat down, she spoke a few words, and we're all very respectful and quiet and waiting. And as the moment approached, she just explained that she wasn't feeling her best and she was a little bit tired, and all she was going to be able to manage that evening was to levitate a leg or an arm. I remember sitting there being respectful, but thinking in my head, oh my goodness, that's not levitation, that's lifting your leg or lifting your arm. But she believed it. This wasn't really a scam. She loved living in her imagination and having this feeling of possessing extra powers. And I'm sure after that experience, she would tell people that yes, she can levitate. In fact, she once demonstrated her powers at a university to a very receptive crowd. And I suppose she might have thought we were a receptive crowd, but really we were just sort of incredulous that we had been duped. No enemies, no bad people here. She was a good person. We were good people. She was just in a different space from us.
Cobalt is
Oh, hi,
with
Cobalt.
us and has a question. Does this card encourage creative work, fantasy, exploring ideas, or it suggests to be more realistic?
I know, I was afraid that would come, and Jocelyn pointed me. Thanks, Cobalt. That's another great question. I wanted to avoid putting these two things, intellect and imagination, on a balance because that wouldn't benefit anybody. The point is when intellect and imagination are yoked together, as in the case of the Sphinx and the Chariot, you get a symbiotic relationship. When your imagination is backed up with some knowledge, you will produce great things, whether inventions or work of art. It's the union of these two things. It makes either one better. So yes, this is a card of using imagination to the best of your ability, and it is not a card about subduing your intellect. It's just letting your imagination be free, put your intellect on the shelf, but you never let go of it. If something seems totally ridiculous to you, I believe that's your intellect speaking to you, and you should listen. I hope that helps with the moon card. People under the influence of the moon may not know they're under the influence of the moon, so we don't want to make them feel bad. Hopefully they'll become aware that if you're going to devote your life to something, keep your head about you and don't be fooled into just following somebody. We've seen the case with Reverend Moon and other people where imagination and following imagination can have disastrous results. So this is just a little bit of a modifying message about keeping our head on straight and letting our imagination flourish under the guidance of our intellect. Thank you very much. See you next week.